Oh my gosh, guys, how long has it been since you saw me put out a video on this channel? I am afraid to say it's probably been about 2 months, and for that, I apologize. I was always intending to release at least one new video per week, and actually, at one point, I was hoping to slowly build up my chops to the point that I'd be able to release maybe even 2 or 3 videos per week. Obviously, I haven't made it there, and in fact, I've kind of reversed, but I have a really, really good reason why I've been gone from this channel for 2 months. I wasn't planning for it to be 2 months, though. So I've actually been working on quite a number of things well, really for you, for me and for you. One of the things I've done is I've been working on a new website. And the reason I wanted to work on a new website is because I wanted to vastly expand the services and help that I could offer to my students and my viewers. So I'll talk about that in just a minute, but let me introduce what the real topic is, which I'm sure you already know because by the time you see the video, I will have given it a title. So I've been wanting also for about the same amount of time, actually, about 2 months now, I've been wanting to make a video on ChatGPT because, of course, everyone in the universe and their mother has at least probably heard of ChatGPT, though I've been a little surprised by how many people still haven't actually tried this thing. So I wanted to make a video just giving some of my own thoughts on ChatGPT and what it may or may not mean for the future and how it relates to what I'm doing, right? I'm teaching you how to code in Java and do interesting things for now in Java. Someday we may, get into some other languages as well. But what does ChatGPT mean for us and our future as programmers, right? So that's what we're going to get into in this video. Now, before we do that, let me jump back over to why I was gone for 2 months. So like I said, I was working on a new website and wanting to have a website where I could offer a lot more expanded products and services. So obviously one main thing is you already know that I have a couple of courses that I'm always selling, my Java Foundations course, and I also have my Unix course that I mention probably pretty frequently, I guess, but a couple of things that I've started doing that perhaps some of you will be interested in knowing about. In addition to my courses that I sell, I am now beginning to offer live courses as well, like actual online courses with a group of people all at the same time. And I just started my first session of these live courses. This is a 12-week boot camp. I just started that last week. So that's a 12-week session, but I will be starting my second session, my second 12-week session, a new session of the 12-week boot camp in the beginning of March. And I think that's going to end up being March 2nd. So if you come to my website, and I will have a link in the description below this video, you'll be able to get all of the details on the bootcamp. But like I said, I just started the first 12-week session with a batch of students, and I'm really happy with it. I think they are too. But the cool thing is that it supplements my Java Foundations course. So if any of you are already subscribed to my Java Foundations course, then you know what I'm teaching in there, which is truly the foundations of Java. From the very, very beginning, basics, I don't assume that you know anything at all about programming, all the way up to the very last section where we build a fully functional web application, a simple one, but it does all the basic things that you'd ever need to do. And in fact, that whole entire section is free on this channel, so you can check that out. But if you don't know Java, you might not fully understand everything that I'm doing there. Anyway, so the bootcamp corresponds with the Java Foundations course, but I expand more of what we're doing in the bootcamp than what we do in the online course, okay? So in the context of a class, we actually can act like a real development team in a real corporation. So I'm introducing my students to agile software development practices, which is what probably every company in the world, definitely every company in the US and probably in the English-speaking world aspire to be. They all say that they're agile. Few of them are doing it very well, but in my bootcamp, we are getting into agile software development so that that when you finish the boot camp in 12 weeks, you will have had a fairly thorough and realistic experience of what it's like to develop an application using agile methodologies. Now, that's not the primary purpose of the boot camp. The primary purpose isn't to just teach you how to do agile. The primary purpose is to actually support those of you who may already have bought my Java course, but you may feel like you need a little extra motivation to finish it, or a little extra help for when you're getting stuck. Sometimes you just want to interact live with a teacher, right? And so I'm there live. I'm answering people's questions, both offline and online during the live sessions. All right. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a statistic out there that something like only 10 to 15% of people who sign up for online courses, especially significant ones, ever finish them. And with my course being very comprehensive at 90 hours long, I got to admit, there's a real possibility that a lot of people aren't going to finish it because it's so long. So by being in a boot camp, it's only once a week for 2 hours each session. The boot camp is set up so that you will finish the entire course by the end of the 12 weeks. That's one of the reasons why it's 12 weeks long. So if you're interested, or if you think you need that kind of help, come check out my website. Also now, next Tuesday, that is Valentine's Day, February 14th at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, which is 5:30 p.m. UTC, or in London, just for my worldwide audience. I will be holding a free webinar where I will go into more detail about the boot camp. So if you're even a little bit curious about what I am doing in that boot camp, just come to my free webinar next Tuesday and ask me all of your questions, and I will even be making a special offer to you. So be sure to meet me on Tuesday for the free webinar. And again, look in the description below this video for the link to register for that webinar. I just need to know how many people are going to show up for it. All right. All right. So sorry about the long commercial, but I needed to let you know. I've been gone for 2 months, right? So I had a lot built up, right, that I needed to spew out at you. Now, I always say, oh, this isn't going to be too long. And I really mean it this time. I'm really going to try not to make this too long, but we need to get into the ChatGPT, don't we? All right. So for those of you who don't know, what is ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is an AI, or an artificial intelligence, that is implemented with a chat user interface. So that just means, like, you can go to a web page and there's a little prompt and you can type things in, whatever your native language is, and you can have a two-way conversation with an artificial intelligence. What's intriguing about this technology is how darn good it is at understanding what you're saying and carrying on a long conversation. I've had so many conversations with this thing that I almost feel like a crazy person, because, it's not alive, but I just go back and forth as if I'm talking to a real person, typing to a real person. Okay. So it has relevance in a lot of aspects of life, ranging from science and politics and philosophy to programming. Okay, so obviously in this video, we're going to focus more on the programming side of it, but I've had conversations on this. One of the things that early on, when I first started playing with it, I started to realize the extent to which I could ask it anything. And by the way, the reason I can ask it anything is because essentially the company behind it, which is OpenAI, in order to develop ChatGPT, they had to train it with data. And the training data that they used was essentially the internet. Now, not, of course, all of it, but enough of it that it seems like it knows a lot about almost everything, that it kind of seems that way. So one night I realized that I wanted to understand better, how do scientists know how old the Earth is? And I've looked this up on Wikipedia many, many times, and I had a vague understanding that was probably deeper than the average person on the street, but it wasn't as strong as I really wanted to understand it. So I went back to ChatGPT and I started asking it, and it was giving me answers that weren't deep enough. So then I asked it, well, can you dig in a little deeper, and it would give me a deeper explanation. And then I'd have to ask it, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And so I'm just having this long conversation. 1 hour later, I was having a 1 hour long conversation with it. But at the end of that 1 hour, I was fairly satisfied that I now had a good enough understanding for me of how scientists are able to really think that they know how old the Earth is. So that's just one of a zillion conversations that I have now had in the past 2 months with ChatGPT. All right. Okay. So enough about that. Let's talk about computing. So in addition to the fact that ChatGPT knows just a whole lot of information about a lot of things, it also knows a lot about code. And as far as I can tell, it might know just about every single programming language there is. It certainly seems to know all of the popular programming languages, okay? Not only does it know the programming languages, it can write code, and it can do this just from a description that you give it. So let me go ahead and shut up now and show you real quick, and then we'll talk some more about it, okay? So you're going to have to register for ChatGPT if you aren't already. So if you go to a browser and you just search for ChatGPT like that, let's see here. Oh, interesting. So Jasper AI has an ad that shows up above it. That's interesting. But anyway, we want to go here to openai.com. Now I'm already registered, so it's probably going to just put me right in the interface there. And I actually already have a tab open. Well, here, let me close that tab. All right, so I will click this link. Oh, okay, cool. And I can go straight to try ChatGPT. Now, if you don't already have an account, then they're going to make you register an account before you can get in there. But I already have one, so here I am. Okay. And so this is the interface for ChatGPT. And like I said, you can just sit here and have a real conversation with it. So I don't know, if I want to ask it something like, who created the Java programming language? James Gosling created the Java programming language. And that reminds me, I'm going to do another video soon, maybe even this week. I don't know when I will get it released though, because there's an awesome interview that I want to take a few snippets from and analyze and have a conversation with you guys about James Gosling, the godfather of, well, the father of Java, the language. Okay. So that's another little sneak preview for another video that I'm hoping to produce real soon here. Okay. But anyway, yeah, so it knows that. So right away, we see some real advantage of using ChatGPT over other methods for getting this kind of answer. So most of us would typically just go to Google and say, you know, the same thing, who created the Java programming language, right? The problem with Google in many cases, although in this particular case, it probably would have answered it just fine. Let's see, who created the Java programming language? Now that might give me a straightforward answer. Yeah, so that's a pretty nice straightforward answer. James Gosling. All right, that's a good one. However, you know that a lot of the times when you ask Google something, you sometimes don't get this kind of nice straightforward answer. And instead you get a bunch of links, and then you have to kind of search through the links. So one of the things that is making ChatGPT so awesome is the fact that you don't have to bother with all the noise of the links. It just gives you the real answer when it knows it. Now you got to be careful occasionally, because with certain types of questions, it will answer the question very authoritatively, and it will also be very wrong. Once in a while, it can happen, okay? And I don't know how to tell you exactly how to protect yourself from that. It hasn't been a real big deal for me. I think I'm usually asking it things that I know enough of that domain about that I can kind of tell when something doesn't quite seem right. So you do need to be a little bit careful with that. And when it's wrong like that, I guess it's usually called an hallucination. It will be very confident seeming in its answer, but the answer is just dead wrong, okay? So that is one thing to keep in mind, but it does not detract from the usefulness of this tool for me in any way, shape, or form, okay? There's just a caveat that you just gotta be aware of. And, you know, this tool is still in beta. So, all right, let's get to the real good stuff though, code. So let's say Actually, in fact, let me tell you something that I was working on just today. I was actually making some tweaks to the web page for my upcoming webinar on Tuesday. And one thing I wanted to do was to be able to show what time the webinar is in whatever your local time is on your browser. Okay. Now, I know that I can do this with JavaScript, and I generally know JavaScript, but I am very much not an expert at date, time zone related things with JavaScript. Okay. That is just something that I've not spent much time on. And so I thought, you know what? Let me go to ChatGPT and ask it if it can help me out with this. So I went to ChatGPT and I said something along the lines of, can you generate a JavaScript function that takes an input of a date and time zone and outputs the same date and time zone, but in the time zone of the browser the code is running in. Okay, so watch this. Okay, so it's done. Now I have sped up the time that took because sometimes it's a little bit slowish to generate this kind of code, okay? But that is done. Now, there may be an issue with this because what I was running into earlier was the fact that I asked it in many different ways to do this, and each version of it was not quite right for me, okay? Now, what it has generated here is actually different from all of the other attempts that I did before. And in fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and try it out and see. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, so I've actually got a previous attempt at getting some generated code out of, actually, I think this one was from GPT-3, which is like the younger brother. I think it's considered the younger brother. Yeah, I think this is kind of the younger brother of ChatGPT. In terms of technological capabilities and things, okay? So I was kind of comparing what ChatGPT would give me versus what GPT-3 would give me. GPT-3, by the way, is, well, we won't get into that now, but maybe in another video, we'll talk a little more about GPT-3 and what is the difference between that versus ChatGPT. All right, but anyway, this was a previous thing. So let me, I'm just gonna blow over that. Okay, and by the way, I'm in IntelliJ, okay? I'm in a project that I had for some other purposes, and what I've done here is to simply create a new file in some project in IntelliJ for JavaScript though, okay? And I can run my JavaScript in here just as if I were running Java code or something like that. And the reason I can do that is because it's using Node.js, which is the platform that allows you to run Java. So if you're not a front-end developer type person, well, I guess, or back-end too, you can use Node for the back end as well. You may or may not really understand what I'm doing there, but basically Node.js can be used kind of like the way that the J shell can be used on the command line, something like that. So the IDE here is taking my code and then basically passing it off into Node.js, an instance of it, running it, and then I get the output. That's basically what's happening, okay? All right, so here's my function, and I want to test this out. So I need to call it. So I could just call it from down here, convert to browser time zone, and then I need to pass in a date. Now, I don't even know what format it's expecting. It's probably ISO, whatever it is, 8601 or something like that. But let me ask it here. So I jump back over here, and I'm going to ask it, give me an example of calling this function. So I don't know how to call the function. So I'm asking ChatGPT, can you show me how to call this function so that I can see like what is the input format that it's expecting? And look at that, it's generating all of that for me as well. Okay, and I think that's about enough. So I can just copy that and then jump back over here and let me get rid of these breakpoints because I was testing some things earlier. All right, so I just right clicked and then I'm just going to say run. Okay, so what's it doing here? So we passed in 2023, February 8th in UTC, and we're getting out February 8th. 12 a.m. Yeah, so see that, I don't know that that makes sense. Now, of course, I'm not running in a browser, but I don't know that that makes sense. I would have expected that if it thinks my input is 12 o'clock UTC, it should know that my computer isn't actually in the UTC time zone, and it should have changed the time there, okay? And so this was the kind of weird stuff that I was running into earlier today as well. Let me see here. If I change that to, let's see, CST. Let's see what that does. Oh, well, maybe that is working. PST. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I take it back. Maybe this is actually working. So it looks like it's expecting the time that I'm specifying here is UTC time. And then this is what do I want that to be outputted as. So let's see here. If I make this 17:30 UTC or 5:30 p.m., and then I want my local time in America. So this, if it's working correctly, then this should give me 11:30 a.m. Hey, look at that. Okay, so I take it back. It is working. It is working. I just didn't understand what was needing to be specified here. What was it expecting here? I thought this time zone was supposed to be for me to specify what time zone this was in, but maybe I told it. Let me see. What did I say? Takes a date and time and a time zone and returns the equivalent date and time in the time zone of the browser. Well, yeah, so yeah, see, it didn't quite follow my instructions exactly. I wanted to be able to specify the time zone that I meant for the input date, and then it should warp that time into whatever the time zone is on the local system, but it's not quite doing that. In fact, what I think what it's doing is it's expecting that I'm specifying the input time in UTC, which is London time, and then it's warping that time to whatever time zone I'm specifying. And so I wonder now if I do IST, which I think is like Indian Standard Time. I guess that's what that stands for. So let's see what this was. Oh, okay. So it doesn't even know what IST is. Okay, yeah. So how about if I do GMT plus 3. I don't know where that is in the world, but 2:30 a.m. Yeah, okay. So that's what's going on there. That's cool, at least that I can specify in that way. And so then if I do GMT minus 6, which is also where I live, yep, 11:30. Okay, well, you know what? I'm probably going to end up using this code. I think I can adapt to this. So anyway, you get the idea, right? It can generate code. And so what's so profound about this capability, by the way, is that this technology isn't going away, okay? This is just going to keep getting better and better, to the point that I predict that within 5 to 10 years, the most popular programming language in the world will be English, or whatever your native language is, because you can talk to this in any language, by the way, okay? I'm not going to try to embarrass myself by trying to ask it to do programmery things in other languages that I barely can speak and can't type very well at all. But learning an explicit computer programming language 10 years from now, I have a feeling, may be an increasingly rare thing to do. So having said that, now many of you should be wondering, well, Terry, I mean, you know, you've got a whole entire channel here that is teaching us how to code, and so far, mostly teaching us how to do it in Java. What is the point of view in 5 to 10 years if we have tools like this? And I will tell you. So though I think this is obviously going to just get better and better and better, I have a suspicion that what's going to happen is programmers are simply going to move up the chain of abstraction, okay? So here's what I mean by that. If you think about what programming was 50 or 60 years ago, somewhere around in there, 70 years ago, something like that. Some of the very first programming languages, well, one of the very first programming languages was machine language, okay? So back in those days, programmers were programming really low level, very close to the metal, as we might say, right? Like really, really very little abstraction between what the processor does and what you have to tell the processor to do, okay? And then from there, we start getting slightly higher level languages, okay? So you've got languages like C, for example, okay, and COBOL and Java and things like that. So what's been happening over the decades to some extent is that programming languages have become more abstracted away from the hardware of the computer, okay? And as these abstractions have occurred, programmers have been able to focus more on other aspects of what they are trying to accomplish, okay? Now, I'm not going to say that programmers can focus more on bigger picture things just because of the languages. Some of it also will have to do with the power of the hardware that we're running on as well. But the languages can help in many, many cases, right? I think there's a real reason why video games are still generally written in C++, and you've got the ability to do all of the modeling and all of this kind of stuff that you can do with an object-oriented language. It would probably be incredibly difficult to write a lot of the modern video games purely in assembly language, for example, okay? Could it be done in theory? Yes, of course it could be done in theory. And I know that occasionally they still will do some optimizations where they have to get down into lower abstractions of a language. But in general, you see that our software capabilities are getting increasingly more sophisticated. And I don't think it's a coincidence that as languages become more powerful and have more abstractions, you're seeing more and more sophisticated software being developed, which is why I kind of scoff when I see like some types of programmers who want to continue coding in really, really low level languages because they have some weird fear, I guess, of getting soft because of all of the abstractions that are afforded us with higher level languages. But, you know, there's a trade-off there. Sure, you can stay in the low level stuff, but if you have any interest in developing increasingly more sophisticated and feature-rich applications that do a lot of non-trivial things, good luck doing that purely with just assembly language. So I think what we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years is these AI-powered tools like ChatGPT are going to unlock a new level of capability in software application development. We're going to be able to start writing even more sophisticated software because we don't have to expend all of our mental energy on these lower level details. Those can become abstracted away and we can focus on the next layer above that to get more interesting things done and to get more work done too, right? So if I had to go scour the internet and read, you know, how to do date, time zone stuff in JavaScript, it would have taken me however long it would have taken, right? But by being able to come into ChatGPT and just describe what I want and have it, you know, spit out a function for me, you know, I'm able to get my work done a lot quicker when it works. Now, earlier today, like I was saying, I was messing around with this thing and it wasn't generating what I was really wanting at all. And honestly, I think one reason why I was able to kind of get a lot closer to something useful this time is because I know all of the ways not to ask ChatGPT to give me what I want. Now, that reminds me of something. I think we are still going to need programmers because I'm a trained programmer, and yet I still had to waste a lot of time learning how not to ask ChatGPT to give me what I wanted. Me asking ChatGPT to give me something is still programming, right? It's just a new type of programming at a higher level and in English, okay? So my wife, who is not a software developer at all, would not have been as successful in being able to communicate with ChatGPT to have it generate this. Even I wasn't that successful before, okay? And so I think that's just going to be the nature of programming for the vast majority. There will still be people 10 years from now who are still toiling around with, more traditional programming languages, almost for sure. I think what we'll see though over time is you'll see programmers like me right now who are dabbling with ChatGPT to, have it spit out like a little function or a little method here and there, right? I wouldn't bother with it to write out like my entire application because I think that would be too tedious in some ways. But to generate like a lot of boilerplate code, or when I'm not sure how to do a particular specific thing like this date, time zone type stuff, perfect tool for me right now. I think as it starts to improve in its ability to understand what I'm trying to do, though, and to generate workable code, I think you'll start to see kind of a shift happen. And at some point, you might see developers, seasoned developers who are coding 50-50 between, handwritten code and what an AI can generate. And then you'll start to see, some continuing shift where the AIs are generating more and more of the code just based on an English description. And forgive me for everybody whose first language is not English. I'm just saying English meaning human language, okay? Substitute English with whatever your favorite human language is, okay? But yeah, I think that's what we're going to be seeing more and more of. And before I go, I want to just tell you one more thing now. So I've got thousands of students around the world, and I get a fair number of questions for my courses, like, oh, I tried to do this thing and it didn't work and I did it wrong or blah, 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 blah. So for those of you who are my students who are watching this video right now, let me show you something. When you run into those problems, before you even write to me, write to ChatGPT and see if it can help you out. ChatGPT has been pretty good for me in a lot of cases. So let me confess something to you. For the last month or so, some questions that I'm getting from my students that are especially a little bit on the longer side and a little bit involved, and I'm kind of busy and I don't really want to take the time to not only read through the entire question, but then like fully comprehend all of the implications of what they're really asking me. So occasionally I have been experimenting with just copying a question from my students, sometimes verbatim. Sometimes I'll tweak it just a little bit because I have a sense that ChatGPT wouldn't fully have the context needed. But I'll take that question, I'll plop it into here, and I'll just see, what's ChatGPT going to say about this? And at least several times now, I've been able to take the output or some version of the output from ChatGPT and paste that right back in as my own response. Now, yesterday I just did this and I did attribute ChatGPT. I let the student know, well, ChatGPT says, and then I put it in italics and said, here you go. Here's an answer for you. Go to town. So I would just want you guys to know, especially if you're kind of like a beginner programmer, I think there's a good chance that your questions may be easy to answer in ChatGPT, or rather ChatGPT may easily be able to answer your questions. So I would encourage you to give it a try. Now, you may have heard a lot of people, and I was even talking about a little bit earlier, of the fact that ChatGPT can be wrong sometimes, and that is absolutely true. It can be wrong. However, as programmers, one of the nice things about that issue with ChatGPT is that you're going to know. It's not like you're going to, live the rest of your life, assuming some wrong information was true. Because if you ask it, how come this code doesn't work, for example, and then you plop the code right in there, and it says, I think it's not working because you did blah, blah, blah. Well, you can ask it, okay, how should I correct it, right? And it'll regenerate that code for you. And then you can just try it, right? And if it doesn't work, you can let it know, hey, this still doesn't work. Here's the output that I just got. And then sometimes it'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood, blah, blah, blah. Try it this way. Now, occasionally you'll get into a cycle where you'll keep going back and forth with that and it's just not going to work. And at that point, sure, you can reach out to me. I mean, you can always reach out to me anyway, but more often than not, I've had pretty good success overall with getting answers from ChatGPT. So, as usual, I have allowed this video to go longer than I should have because I talk too much, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I haven't shown you a whole lot. So I've got a lot of, well, I'm not going to say I have a lot, but I have a few things that I want to show you. But in the interest of keeping this particular video from getting any longer, I'm going to hold off on those until another video, maybe another one this week or next week though. Okay. So yeah, that's ChatGPT. Welcome if this is your first time getting into it. Go explore it, have fun. This is the future. For sure, this is the future, okay? There's a lot of things that are going to change in the world because of this technology. Not necessarily specifically ChatGPT, because I think this is just the first of an onslaught of what a lot of the world is starting to already coin as the AI wars. I think we're about to have a giant war between OpenAI via Microsoft and Google with DeepMind and whoever else is working in this space. Yeah, some guys from OpenAI broke off and made their own company as well. So I think we're going to see a ton of competition in this space over probably over the next few months. In fact, in 2023, this is the year of AI coming into the public discourse for sure. Okay. All right. So again, go check out the links in the description below this video. Come register for my webinar. Let's just talk, let's meet, let's have some fun at the webinar next week. It's only for an hour, but I will answer your questions. You'll get to see me live on a Zoom call. Okay. And go check out my new website as well. And I haven't even put my Unix course up there yet because it takes forever for me to upload these things, but stay tuned for that. And yeah, let's stay in touch, and I will see you guys in the next one.